Welcome back to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do this without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to start by saying thank you to all of them. First, to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands. Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands is elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. Camp Mobile, where teams communicate better. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. And Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Thank you to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is truly an old friend, Dr. Lisa Langston from the Fort Worth Independent School District. She is a certified master athletic administrator. Lisa, thanks for being on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jake. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, we go back a few years. We were both on certification committee. You moved on to bigger and better things as a board member, but you know it's still good to see you, if for nothing else, every year at the national conference.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, as you know, this is a busy time of year for athletic directors, so we're going to jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and maybe how your love of sports led you into this career in athletic administration.
Okay, well, I'm from Dallas, Texas. I went to Spruce High School in the Dallas Independent School District, but actually my athletic career started early. When I ran track, and just a real quick story about that. My brother and I were latchkey kids, and so our thing was we were supposed to come straight home from school, and I asked my mom if I could try out for the musical, The Sound of Music, and she said yes. And so I found out early on that singing was not my talent, but I do know all the songs from The Sound of Music because of that. But I asked her, I said, well, you let me stay after school for the tryout for the musical. Why can't I stay out for sports? And I had her. And so I went out and I started as a fourth grader on our elementary school track team. And then the next year I played basketball and volleyball as well, and continued those three sports into high school, and added cross country in high school. So I was a 4-sport letter winner in high school. I got an athletic scholarship to Texas A&M University. Woo! And played basketball there for 4 years. And then my senior and my fifth year, I ran track. And you can see my banner on the back here. And I found this, my grandmother passed away last year, and we were cleaning out the house, and she had the banner from the Hall of Fame. So great memories and things like that. But after I finished my career at A&M, I went over to Germany and played a couple of years of pro ball there. And then I played a short stint in Spain. And my mom really struggled with me being abroad. And so I just decided to come back to the States and get started with my career. And I got into coaching truly when I went to A&M. I was an electrical engineering major, but I worked a basketball camp after my freshman season. And the joy I had in being able to teach young people something, and the joy they had in being able to accomplish something they didn't think they could do. That fall, like I changed my my degree, my major from electrical engineering into to physical education, and I decided then that I wanted to teach and coach. But after I finished my career as a pro ball player, came back home, got a head coaching job at Poly High School in Fort Worth. I was there 1 year, then I moved on to Pascal High School, and I taught and coached there for 4 years. And then our district decided to have a intramural athletic program, and I was recruited for that position and went to the athletic department. And I was in that role for 5 years, and then they made some changes and restructuring, and I was able to help write the proposal to include restructuring with some additional assistant athletic directors. So I like to say I wrote my own promotion into the proposal. And about 3 years ago, they added another structure to our department, and I was able to get the director of athletics position. And I think for me, I had some memories of when I was in high school at a regional track meeting. A lady named Louie Harris, she was assistant athletic director for the Dallas Independent School District. And we were at the regional track meeting. She came up to me and she said hello to me. She knew my name. And I was shocked because I just thought, oh my gosh, you know, to me, it meant that I mattered to somebody. I had never thought about that. And so from that point, athletic administration had always been in the back of my mind. And so that's a little bit about how I got to where I am today.
Wow, I did not know a lot of that. That is a very, very cool story. You touched on our next area I'd like to talk about, the importance of leadership and mentorship. Growing up, you know, playing professionally and then getting your start in education, who have been some of your key mentors over the years? People that, as you do your job, you can still hear their voices in the back of your head.
Okay. I would say for sure the number one person beyond my mom and my grandmother, because those are the people who taught me about work ethic and the type of person I want to be and things like that. But Lynn Hickey, and Lynn Hickey is now the current Vice President, Director of Athletics for East Washington State University. I think that's the name of the university. But she came in as the basketball coach my junior year at A&M. And for me, she was life-changing because as a player, she showed me that I had value beyond what I could do on the court. And so that mentorship started then. And I observed her as an athletic administrator because she came in as head basketball, but she was also the women's athletic administrator. And so I was able to watch how she did things and have conversations with her. And I think one of the things she did for me was allowing me to run one of the camps. I mean, I was in charge of it. And so it gave me an opportunity, a leadership opportunity. And I can tell you through the years, I still contact her when I was working on my dissertation. I needed some information, and so she was my go-to. And, you know, and I was honored and blessed to have her come across my life. And then some of the other people, just some local athletic directors who kind of took me under their wings right here in our area, that, you know, just took the time to talk to me. And then I will say this also, when I was working on my dissertation, I interviewed 12 local athletic directors. And for me, I felt like that was a mentoring session because, you know, they were very candid. And you know, I just thought to myself, man, this is the best professional development and things like that. So I have a number of people who I consider mentors, you know, and they may have just been there for a season. And of course, like I said, Lynn Hickey has been a lifelong mentor for me.
Well, you know, talking about, you know, the journey, I think a lot of younger ADs, you know, will see someone that's, you know, on a state position or even at the on a national committee, and they'll say, gosh, I wonder how they got there. And you know, and I know, you know, the journey, but go ahead and talk about how you got involved at the state level and then again at the national level with NIAAA.
At the state level, you know, they almost happen simultaneously. At the state level, I just knew I wanted to be involved. And so Joe Burnett, local athletic director, was the president of our state association at that time. And I played golf with Joe before and really liked him and had a great relationship with him, a great rapport with him. And I just told him I wanted to be more involved with the state association. So he named me as the NIAAA liaison for our state association. And from that point, I became more involved with the NIAAA, and then Annette Scoggins, which a lot of people know. Annette and I go way back, because she used to live in my area, and we were actually flag football teammates, and we never talked to each other then. We always laugh about that. But once I became a member, and she and I would run into each other, and she would talk about, getting more involved and things like that. And I just kind of watched what she did and things like that. And so initially I was on the ad hoc committee for the coaches education, and I think it just kind of took off from there. I had a strong belief in the NIAAA and the mission of the organization, because I'm a firm believer in professional development and growing yourself, and so it really aligned with my purpose and my beliefs and things like that. And so I've just continued to seek ways where I could become more involved, and I got the opportunity to run for the at-large C position, and was able to win that election, and now on the board, and was able to run for the president-elect and things like that. And so, but it's been people along the way, going back to those mentors you asked me about that. I think about the people that I've served with in the committees. There's just so many, it's almost too many to name, but I think every time I go into a committee meeting, or like even in this section right here, I'm looking for opportunities to grow. I'm looking for those nuggets, things that will help me improve. And as I worked on these different committees and went to the national conferences, and having every conversation you have at the national conference, you gain something from it, and that and that's a joy for me. And you take that, you take what you've learned or what you've heard, and you reflect on it, and you see how I utilize that in my life and things like that, and you grow from it.
Oh, it's great to hear. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about COVID. Certainly, been on everyone's mind since this past spring. Texas is, again, the obvious, very big state. Fort Worth, a huge school district. So there's a lot of moving pieces. But two questions. What were some things that you did this past spring in response to the closures for the students, the teams, the coaches in your area? And second question, understanding that things could change tomorrow, what's the response right now as far as reopening for Fort Worth Independent School District?
Okay. All right. First question. Early on, when we first had to start working remotely, I have 4 high schools that I work really close with, and my colleagues, and we're kind of divided so that we can, make sure that everybody gets a lot of attention. And when I met with my individuals via Zoom, the thing I told them to focus on is, as we go through this, figure out what is it that you've learned. I mean, what opportunities have COVID presented? And I think my relationship with those individuals, we all noted that we grew. I mean, because, people were sharing things that normally they wouldn't share. And some, our head football coaches, some of them, they were spending time with their kids. Their kids were getting to know who they were, because we were sitting still and we're at home. And so we kind of looked at the positive with that aspect. Some of the things I shared with them, like I would do this emotional map with them that I had gotten from a training that I had gone to, and they took that back to their kids, because they understood that the kids weren't always truthful about what was going on. But if you had this map where you could talk about it, if are you in a joyous jungle or whatever the case may be, it helped them to connect with the kids. And so even throughout that time, they were still interacting with their kids, because we just thought that was extremely, extremely important. Since then, in Texas, we were allowed, I think the date was June 8th, to start a strength and conditioning summer program in sports specific. And so we put together a return to play plan. We had members of our district health services department, our district operations department, all be a part of it, because it was important to us that, number one, we couldn't act in isolation, because number one, we're not the health experts. So we had to have everybody come together. And so our associate superintendent that's in charge of health services, one of the things that he shared with us was, athletics, you're going to give us an opportunity to kind of model what's going on or what to expect in the fall as you go through the summer strength and conditioning. And, they provided us with the PPE and things like that. And so we've had schools that have continued, except when the state has told us to take a break up until this time. And starting Monday, some of the programs that had just taken a break or went on pause, they're coming back. But, everything is about student safety, right? First and foremost. And, and I was on a Zoom call right before this with athletic trainers from around the state, and it was put on by our state ADs Association, and they were just getting into the discussion about COVID and the role of the athletic trainers and things like that, because they are essential to this. And we make sure that they look at our plan and we get their input, and just so that everybody can feel good about what we're doing. But at the same time, I recognize that our coaches are, they're impacted by this. We've had some loss through this, and and we've had, and so you never lose sight of the fact that just because it hadn't touched my life doesn't mean it hadn't touched the life of one of my coaches. And I know, and like I said, I know that it has, not just some of my coaches, but some of my athletic trainers. So, we got to have some empathy there, and be able and be willing to listen to people and their thoughts. And we have some people with underlying conditions that we know, our district is coming up with a plan for how we will address that, because that's an employee situation that, we have to, account for and things like that. And we're trying to make sure people are at their comfort level, because at some point, we were able to go indoors, but some people were like, no, I just want to stay outside and do, and it was like, yes, by all means, if that's where your comfort level is, please stay right there. And so, Monday, when we go into the office, we'll have a staff meeting. We'll have another powwow, and with our school just determining their start date just yesterday, we'll have to come up with another plan. So it is never ending.
And I think that's the only consistent thing we can say, is that it's not ending and it's ever changing.
Yeah.
Staying serious for a little bit. This past spring, of course, there was a much increased awareness across the country in the area of social issues, social consciousness. From your position, from your perspective, what are some things that we can do as athletic directors to do a better job with our kids and with our stakeholders in this area?
I think number one, listen. I've been on some diversity panels. I've talked to individuals and coaches in our district, our coordinators. I think it's important that you don't just think, okay, this is going to pass. Be willing to have the conversation and be open. I've shared with people my story. And that's my story has started conversations, because I'm not afraid to talk about it. I've heard an athletic trainer just recently was talking about, well, I didn't, the kids didn't want me to be here, and I didn't know what to do. And it's just like, well, ask them. Some of the cues that you're going to have to take are going to come from your kids. And then the other thing is educate yourself. I just heard the Dallas Wing head coach was talking about white privilege, and he was just saying that when people hear that term, they think that you're thinking that, well, I don't live in a mansion, or and it's like, no, it's not. It's nothing like that. It is, it means that you're not, your hardships are not due to the color of your skin. and things like that. And so, like I said, there's books to educate yourself. Pay attention. I mean, some of the things you can see, I'll never forget when I was in college and we were at a restaurant, the track team, and there was a guy on the track team. He was white, and he and I and a couple of teammates, we were sitting and having a meal, and he shared with us that the wait staff was not giving us good service because there were blacks at the table. Now, he was white and he picked that up. And so those are things that if you start paying attention, you can see when there's discrepancies in people's behavior. But from an educational standpoint, I mean, because we are about education, and that's the thing. First, you got to educate yourself so that you can be the educator. And just know that no one is asking for you to get to be perfect. Because I think that's part of the difficulty in this, because people are afraid of saying the wrong thing. Well, someone will let you know if you said the wrong thing. Well, then you know it's not the right thing to say. Then you won't say it anymore because you've learned your lesson and things like that. But I think don't operate from fear, operate from curiosity. Just talk to people. Somebody doesn't look like you, just have a conversation with them. I mean, the best thing to do is break bread. I mean, there is nothing more healing and a way to foster togetherness than having a meal together. And then when you sit down and you have a chat, then you can see where those commonalities are. And for coaches, we do the Inside Out Coaching Initiative. When you're talking and you're giving your narrative, share your story, and then have kids ask you questions. You ask them questions and things like that. And I think that's, that's the starting point. It's just having conversations and recognizing that we're all human beings. That's the bottom line. We're human beings. And so when you start looking at people as human and you look for what makes them human, then it's easier, I think, to have conversations and to change the narrative of this nation. I'm not, I said this a couple of weeks ago, I'm not a sociologist or anything like that, but that's just, just my observation of living in this world. And, I lived abroad, which gave me a different perspective than people that have never who've never left the country.
Oh, absolutely.
It was very different for me. So.
Well, again, I really appreciate you sharing, great advice for all of us. Let's talk about your job. What are some of your favorite things about your present position? What gets you excited about getting up in the morning each day and coming to work?
Well, I know every day is going to be a new day. It's something different. I can tell you, working with kids, even though I'm in a district office, so I'm not at a campus or anything like that. But I still get the opportunity to influence kids, and I love that fact. I love when our kids are performing well. And this is just a brief story. I had a young lady, and she was a shot putter, and she was at one of our high schools that traditionally does not perform well. And we're at the regional track meet, and she has qualified for state. And man, she's excited. I'm excited. The coach is so excited. We're all excited. And so we're jumping around and stuff like that. Well, I see her mother because someone said that's her mom. And so I go over to introduce myself to her mother. And when I walked up, her mom, and I said, well, I'm, Lisa. And she's like, I know who you are. Like, Jazz talks about you all the time. And that to me, I thought, okay, see, that's when I knew as an athletic administrator, I was doing my job, because Jazz I have been watching since she was a 7th grader. So I've seen her, and she was a senior then. And so moments like that, and this sounds strange, I love projects. Like we go in and we meet with upper leadership, and they come back and they say, hey, we need this, whatever, because I like a challenge. And so those type of aspects of it. And, the human part, the relationships, coaches and getting to know them, my athletic trainers, those are aspects that I like. I had to come up with my transformational statement. I lead to make connections with adults and students to make a positive difference in their life. And so when I go into work every day, that's kind of the goal is who am I going to make a relationship with or connection with today? So that's part of it.
Well, it's always about the kids, but that it's
Yeah.
great
Oh,
to
yeah.
hear. It's great to hear that articulated so well.
Mhm.
Well, Lisa, this has been just wonderful, but we're not quite done.
Okay.
We always finish with what we call the athletic director's toolbox, and you're certainly an experienced AD. You've worked with athletic directors. Now your job is to send a brand new athletic director out on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. What 3 things are going to go in Lisa Langston's athletic director toolbox?
Okay. First thing is self-care, because that's one thing I think people as athletic administrators, we don't take care of ourselves. And if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of anyone else. So watch your diet, watch the amount of sleep that you're getting. And when I say diet, I don't mean dieting, what you eat, working out, getting exercise, because all that contributes to you being productive. Second thing is put on your good ears. One of the things when I first started as a assistant AD, I would hate when there was a phone call that came in from an angry or disgruntled parent. I mean, the hairs on the back of my neck would just stand up like, I don't want to, deal with that. But what I've learned is learn to listen. And as the parents are talking, listen for where there might be elements of truth in what they're saying, and look at those as opportunities to improve. And that part is helpful. The third thing as a new administrator is, we talked about it earlier, a mentor. If you don't know something, don't be afraid to ask. Ask questions. If there's somebody in the area that you admire or you look up to, call them, and don't be afraid to, if you got to make a big decision, talk to them first before you make the decision. Say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. What are your thoughts? How does this, play out, and things like that. If you have the opportunity to do that. And this is just a bonus. One of the things that I try to remember sometime is, and this sounds odd, but we're not doing brain surgery. And when I think about that, it's not that what we're doing is not important, because it really and truly is. And I know you know that, but it makes you be able to take a step back and take a deep breath and realize, okay, if it doesn't work out, then I've learned a lesson and I can improve on that. And so that'll help you with that stress that we get, and it kind of help you from being overwhelmed sometime. And like I said, that's from, but I'm in my 30th year of education, and 25 of them has been in athletic administration. So, what I'm just saying, I wasn't like that in year 6. It took me 30 years or 26 years to get to this point where it's like, okay, this is kind of how I deal with the stress of the job, because we make big decisions. We do.
No, that's, just such great advice. I appreciate the bonus too. And, the listing one, I think, as ADs, I think we are wired for solutions. And, you hear someone, sharing their concern, and a lot of times, as they just want to get off their chest. They know you're not going to give in, but early on, I'd be offering 5 or 6 solutions, and they hadn't even gotten to the reason they're in my office anyway. So yeah, learning to listen, I think, is critical. Right? Well, Lisa, this has been great. Thanks so much for being a guest today.
Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. I wish you all the success in the reopening, and hopefully we'll be able to continue these conversations in person in December when you come down to my state for the national conference.
Hey, Jake, I sure hope so. And you take care down there, okay? And everyone that's listening, you guys be safe and take care, and God bless you.
Absolutely. Listeners, thanks as always for tuning in. Come back next time for another edition of the Educational AD.
Have a great day.